This is the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud. My name's Andrew Jones.
And I'm Neil Greggor.
How you doing, Neil?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Andrew. And you?
Yeah, not too bad. Unfortunately, the sun's not shining today as we record this, but fingers crossed it will be when you listen to this.
Eventually,
yeah. Yeah, it used to be the way around when I was in Australia.
Yeah,
eventually, it
absolutely.
will rain one day.
Yeah, that's right. You keep asking, it'll eventually rain.
Oh, no. And I have had a client over here a couple of months ago. Well, it will stop raining one day. It's like, I just had to laugh to myself because it's the complete opposite of what I was used to in the past.
Yeah. I prefer it this way.
Well, yes, it has its advantages. But anyway, so welcome to today's podcast. In today's podcast, we are talking about women in dairy. Hello, I'm Andrew Jones.
And I'm Neil Greggor.
And welcome to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry.
Farmer, advisor, processor, and everyone else. We have topics and episodes that will interest you.
We discuss the practical and the technical aspects of different UK dairy industry topics.
We aim to make you think about what you're doing and ask yourself, can it be done differently?
Listen to us speak with specialists from inside and outside the industry about their area of expertise.
Subscribe and listen to episodes for free on your favorite podcast platform, or sign up to our website www.chewingthecud.com for podcast notifications so you never miss an episode, and links to our socials.
Or email us direct on podcast@chewingthecud.com.
If you like what we do, please share and leave us a review to show your support. And that's it. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to today's episode, which is about women in dairy. And with us is our returning guest and part-time host, Sarah Bolt. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Andrew. Thank you for having me back.
You're more than welcome. And also with her today is Becky Miles. Hello, Becky.
Hello, Andrew. Thanks for inviting me.
You're more than welcome. We've asked you to join us today because I believe it's 10 years of women in dairy.
It certainly is. We're very proud of the fact.
As I think you should be. You should be. But before we start, if you want to know a little bit more about Sarah, then obviously go back to the episode she did on carbon sequestration back in season 1. And as you can see, I can say it properly now without having it written down.
Awesome.
Yeah, it took a while, but we managed.
We've managed. With us this time as well is Becky Miles. So Becky is from Real Success, Let's Farm Foundation and Lean Farming UK. Is that right, Becky?
It's correct. It's like I can't make up my mind, isn't it? Too many hats.
Well, I could say you're a woman and you're multitasking, so it's
Well, one doesn't like to brag. I lead, others follow.
Let's not forget part-time women in dairy as well.
Yes, oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
So, as we know a little bit about Sarah already, Becky, tell us a little bit about your background.
I'll try and keep it as short, but I am long in the tooth now, so a few things have happened. So I first trained at Sparshot to be a farm secretary, and then straight from there went to Harper Adams and did agri-marketing and business admin. And if I'd known what my profile was then, I never would have taken the first job I took, which was grain trading. No offence to grain traders, but it doesn't suit my personality.
We're talking obviously Real Success profiling.
Exactly,
yes.
Yeah. So I am team maker adventurer.
Are you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, lots of information. So from there, a couple of years working behind the scenes, not related to farming. And then my husband and I saw a job advertised for a couple to go and run a farm in southwest Portugal. And we thought, well,
Why not?
why not? I always tell this story because if you don't put your hat in the ring, you're never going to get that role. We didn't think we had a cat and hell's chance to the extent we got invited for interview. We went to a very big party the night before and had a very good time. So when the alarm went the next morning, we just looked at each other and said, really, is it worth going? We did, and we got the job. So we went out there to run 1,200 ewes on a frequent lambing basis and grow new potatoes to export back to the UK. I had grown some potatoes in the garden, and I'd done some lambing. My husband at the time was running a flock of sheep even. So we're obviously qualified. But what an opportunity. Fantastic time.
Wow, I bet.
Yeah,
I
out
love
there
Portugal.
for 7 years. Came back after 7 years, 2 kids and a load of stuff. And then we worked briefly on the Isle of Wight. I worked for Isle of Wight Tomatoes, and then interesting, very
You've had
interesting.
a varied career, haven't
very
you?
career, yes. Then a little bit of time with a rural pension portfolio, supporting sustainable development of the portfolio. The only organisation to do it outside of London, because the guy who ran it, Nick Woolley, was awesome and incredible person. And then I worked for AHDB Dairy.
That's where I first met you,
That's
like
right.
when I first met Sarah. It was
that's
also
where I met
AHDB.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started doing the milk bench data collection, and then I applied for a knowledge exchange role. And this is where Women in Dairy came in, because I had to do a presentation on what AHDB were missing. And I'd been to enough meetings to see that there were hardly any women. And I'd asked them why.
No, that was. I'm going to say I'm a bloke. I'm blind, I guess, to these things, but that was very noticeable, was it?
To me, it was. Yeah, because I am one.
Well, yeah, fair
And
enough.
if you can't see you there,
Yes.
it becomes obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're a person of colour or ethnicity or whatever it is, if you can't see you there, you don't feel
Represented.
potentially
Yeah.
you are allowed to be there.
Yeah.
So there were a range of issues when I spoke to women about why they don't come. Number one reason is having a toilet. And I'm afraid there are a lot of farms these days that still don't have a functioning toilet. Now, it's 2024, people. We need to buck our ideas up, because you're blocking people coming to work for you and visit your farm.
You just think that's such an easy. You don't even think about
You
that,
don't
do you?
know.
No.
No. Well, we do.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. So there are other things, other simple things like, oh, I've never been to college, I've never been trained. But you've taught yourself. You're amazing. And we want to share how you did that and what you've learnt on the way. Time of day. Well, we can have the meetings when you want them, when suits you. What about the kids? Like, bring them along.
But we'll go back to the whole Women in Dairy thing. But so then from AHDB, where have you gone from there?
So with AHDB for 11 years, and during my time there, met Paul Harris from Real Success, and that was an absolute light bulb moment, because I'd never been profiled. And it just made so much sense. It just resonated completely with me.
We spoke about it briefly back in our podcast with Neil
We did.
Christensen.
Yeah.
And it is scary, because I got fully done from who
Fully
I was
done,
working-
fully profiled.
Fully profiled. Sorry. Probably done over as well. Fully profiled by who I was working for at the time, having done a day with Paul on the course. And as I said it then, and I'll say it now, that was scary, because when you read back, you're like, oh, from answering, say, is it 40 questions?
Yeah.
It's like, that is me kind of summed up.
Yeah.
Does pinpoint you.
Don't like that.
We are what we
easy
are.
to read.
Yeah.
And so obviously with Paul on the Real Success.
Yes. And so after I'd seen him deliver a few times, I said, look, I'm really, really
I know he was
interested.
looking for somebody, wasn't he? at the
Well,
point?
I said to him, when you're ready to expand, because he was a one-man band.
Yes, he was.
And he came from
Yeah.
completely outside agriculture,
Yeah.
and agriculture has embraced that, because he's
Yeah.
made it so simple and
Yes.
it resonates and you can understand it. It's not as complicated as the other systems that are out there. So
Yeah.
it's for everybody in the team. I said, when you're ready, I'll be delighted to come and join you.
Yep.
And that's what happened.
Fantastic. And that's
Yeah.
where you are now, but
That's
obviously
where
you
I'm
have
now.
a few other hats at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So I do 1 day a week for the Let's Farm Foundation, formerly known as Dairy Futures. So we help new entrants into dairy farming. We coach and mentor, but we also provide unsecured loans,
Right.
because it's such a capital intense
Yes.
industry to
Yep.
get into. It's really difficult.
Yep.
So to anybody that's interested, please visit the Let's Farm Foundation website and get in
Yep.
touch with us, because
Yep.
we're very supportive. We've got a fantastic bank of trustees that support us. We've got Mark Roach from Grosvenor, Paul Eggleston up in Leicestershire, Sophie Gregory close to
Yes.
home down in
Yep.
Dorset,
Yep.
David Homer, who's been the flagship of us going forwards, and also Kate Cross.
And then obviously you say the Lean Farming UK.
And Lean Farming is a new venture, so we've just started that with Phil Cooper from FCG Consulting. So we're just
Yep.
running our first pilot groups at the moment. We've got 3 farms. It's going really well. I'm delighted. The outcomes, I think, are going to be very powerful.
I know Phil's been involved with Lean for a little while, hasn't he? With,
Yes, he has. So we met on the European...
Sweden, from Sweden, was it? Or somewhere?
Yeah, so there's a European
Yeah,
group that run meetings online and then also within their countries. So
Yeah.
he's been involved with them for quite a long time. It was just a year and a half ago I came across it,
Yep.
bumped into Phil, and while I was on there was a farmer who said, "Are you going to be doing lean management there?" And I said, "Okay." So here we are.
Here we are. Why not?
Tremendous.
Why not? Exactly. So let's take a step back to Women in Dairy. You've already touched on some of it. It is interesting, you say, because to me, I look around, I guess I've maybe been very fortunate since I've been back and doing some of the things I've done, but there are some fantastic women in dairying, and I could name a handful without even thinking about it. I'm sure you know who they are if I did. I'm not sure if I should embarrass them or not.
Why not?
Oh, sing their praises, please.
Well, I mean,
Definitely.
obviously we've already had Catherine Pickford on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You've got Caroline Spencer. There's another one. You've got Mary Cook, I think is phenomenal. There are others, and I cannot. Carrie Dunford.
Yeah. Karen Holton.
There's
list is
lots
endless.
locally.
Mary Quick. We've got,
Yes.
But, locally and people I've dealt with, they are fantastic farmers.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter they're a woman or not. They are just
Exactly.
fantastic farmers.
That's right.
I mean, I won't on some of the things I say, but I won't. But they are just fantastic farmers.
10 years ago, would have many have come to mind?
Probably not because of what I was doing at the time. It wasn't, but I guess because of the role previous to this, I've worked with a lot of them. So I just know them, and they're fantastic farmers. Yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe they wouldn't have sprung to mind, but since then I've worked them. I don't know. But so let's go back to.
There are a few though. So, I mean, just back on that. When I was growing up, my mother-in-law was an exceptionally good farmer. She actually looked after the farm while her husband, my father-in-law, was working outside of the farm.
Yeah.
But
Then, of course, there's Mary Mead. There's Pam we used to have a Jersey herd up in Battle.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been, throughout my history, there's been, especially funny enough, within the Jersey industry, there's been a lot of people that I've really looked up to.
That's really
that
true,
were
actually, when it comes to
exceptional
Jersey.
breeders.
Definitely.
Actually changed the world that we live in.
Yeah.
So
I think what's really interesting is that actually when you look at the history of dairying, going back to sort of pre-industrial revolution, that actually it was the women of the households that were the dairy person in these situations.
When you think about that, it just made me think about my grandmother. From stories I'm told, like she used to like sheep, and I hate the damn things. But she said, like when the men were out doing the field work or whatever, she'd be the one looking after the sheep. And from what I understand, my grandfather never milked. It was my grandmother milked. And my grandfather just washed up, cleaned the dairy afterwards. It was my grandmother did the milking until my father then came along and he then took over that. But you're right, it was probably there. But I mean, if you go back, I think we sort of touched on it before, like you look at vets now in the industry, majority are women, the younger ones. Yep. Whereas, I've said the story before, I know in a previous podcast, I remember the first woman vet joining the practice where I was, where we had as a child. And it was, woman, she's going to pinch somebody's husband. She's going to, it was all that. Whereas now it's just, I mean, she did marry a farmer, but obviously he wasn't previously married. But, it was just the attitude, the thing. And as you're right, as an industry, you wouldn't have immediately spoken, they would have been an exception probably rather than, I'm not saying the rule now, but you see so many young women coming into dairying now, which you never would have seen in the past. I mean, I guess when I was at college, and that's a long time ago now, 25, 20, whatever years ago, it was majority, it was probably 10 blokes to 2 girls, or I bet it's more half and half.
I can give you some stats on that if you like.
Give us some, we will. But
absolutely, as students, I remember that.
That's what I've got.
They were like 2%
Let's go back then. You touched on it a little bit before, Becky, but 10 years ago, because we're obviously here to celebrate this 10 years of women in dairying. 10 years ago, what made you go, right, I know Sarah's briefly touched on it in the end of the podcast you did with her a couple of years ago now. You've obviously touched on it, but what made you go for it? What made Women in Dairy happen?
Well, bless AHDB for giving me the role, because I presented on we need to get more women, and I suggest we have women only. We trial some women only groups. And so because I was covering Cornwall at the time and Sarah was covering Devon, we thought we would collaborate because women are quite good at that, we've found, and working together for the common good. So we got together. Men at that usually, yes. No, everyone has a skill set, and we're not going to be men versus women. This is not what it's about at all.
No.
Anyway, we collaborated and we had our first meeting. Well, we sent a letter out to 300 farms.
Yep.
We didn't have the ladies' names because the database only had blokes' names. Yep. So we put on the envelope for the attention of the women in the dairy business.
Yep.
And the women told us that he still opened it.
You got to
I think those that did open it probably got a bit of a shock. Do you want to tell them about the invitation, Becky?
So we made it. We had like a dressing screen.
Yep.
So as if the woman was behind the screen,
right.
And then from out behind the screen were coming clusters, wellies, a bale of hay, a calculator, all these sort of things, and a leg with a stocking on, just to make it a little bit slightly risque. Anyway, so they did get to read them in the end, the invite, and we were inundated with people emailing, phoning us, contacting us in all various forms saying thank you.
But before you sent that out then, if you'd gone to a typical AHDB meeting and let's say...
Or any meeting.
Well, any meeting, what ratio of men to women do you think you would have seen?
10-1 at them.
Yeah.
At best, I'd say. Yeah.
But obviously you started talking to some of these people to say, well,
why?
Sorry, the ones that weren't there, why weren't you coming to these meetings?
Exactly. And so, as I alluded to before, facilities, a toilet, someone to wash your hands.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with the kids?
Yeah.
Bring them along.
Yeah.
I'm not educated. I don't know anything. Yes, you do. And this is where we keep empowering people. I just do this. You actually said it earlier about somebody just washed up. Nobody just does anything. We didn't just turn up today, and we're very good at saying that and demotivating and depowering people. So everybody has a role and can contribute, and that's what we wanted to inspire them to do.
And I think it was the asking questions, wasn't it? That they didn't want to go along to a meeting and be really keen to find out more, but actually didn't want to ask a question in front of a group of what they felt was more knowledgeable people.
Little did they know.
And to be honest with you could say it doesn't matter if you're man or woman. It's the same thing.
Yep.
And I know myself, I can't remember where, I think it was at college it would have been, and someone said, usually if you want to ask the question, it means somebody else wants to ask the question and they're too afraid to ask. So I sort of learnt that lesson, and now if I got a question, I'll just ask it. Don't care. Yeah. Because if I feel stupid afterwards, so be it. But usually there's somebody else wants to ask that question anyway, and you sometimes get someone. Oh, glad you asked that one.
It's so true.
I was always told the only stupid question is the one that is never asked.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you felt there was an impetus to do something. You sent the letter out. You got replies.
We did. We had nearly 100 people turn up at the first meeting.
I think any marketer would have loved that 3 to
they'll be contacting us now. How'd you do it?
So where did you have the first meeting?
So we were in a village hall
in St Giles, which is just on the Devon-Cornwall border, so between Holsworthy and Launceston, or Lanson, if I've got my Cornish hat on. And basically, as most people know, that's a huge dairy area. So we targeted where we were going to.
And as you say, it was nicely in the middle. If you were looking after Devon, Becky was looking after Cornwall. Bang. Yeah.
We could
100 people. I don't think I've ever seen 100 people to any dairy meeting, unless it's something like Gold Cup or something like that.
Yeah.
We stood in the kitchen, didn't we, Becky, and went, oh my God, what have we done? The noise from 100 women is probably 4 times louder than the noise from 100 men.
I agree.
But it was a really positive noise.
Yeah.
It wasn't
happy noise.
It was, la. They were so excited to be there.
Yeah. And what was the topic of the first meeting? Or was it just literally, let's get together and see where you want to go?
It was a very light touch to start with, because we felt the most important thing was to hear from them, because we wanted to develop the group going forward.
What did they want?
Yes, exactly. So you did about half an hour, 40 minutes on calves.
I know.
Yeah,
isn't it? That's like, so...
Yeah.
Hey, what do women want to talk about? Calves. Yeah. I mean, talk about stereotyping.
What's perceived as the typical role? Oh, women can wear the calves.
Yeah. But we've
moved away from that.
Yeah, we have. And we didn't spend very long talking about calves, although everyone engaged and they got a lot out of it.
Yes.
We then said we actually split them into groups to find out about each other.
We kind of need to. 100 would be too many otherwise,
wouldn't
it?
Yeah, it was unwieldy.
Yes.
So we found out their backgrounds, what they would like to talk about, what they wanted to learn going forwards, where they wanted to meet, how often, what time of day, all the things. I mean, it was just loads of information coming back to us. But the breadth and depth of the different careers we had in that room was amazing.
It was absolutely awesome, wasn't it? So we had a ballet dancer,
a policewoman,
one lady that went from Boots, as in Boots the chemist, to Boots on the farm.
Yeah, an interior designer.
As well as
So connected to farming. Formally? So they were all connected, whether they had a partner or were living on a farm or working on a farm. These had been their backgrounds, or they were currently their other roles as well. You were talking earlier about people having more than one role. It's still current.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Certainly is.
But and age-wise as well. Where we had that lovely lady, 79, 80, wasn't she? She's with, and I think going back to you were just saying a wealth of experience in the Jersey herd. Yes, she's got her Jersey herd as well, very close by.
So the age range was 18 to 80.
Literally, I mean, that's the stereotype. 18 to 80, it was.
Yeah,
completely.
It was.
It totally was, and always has been. It stayed that way.
Yeah.
So we definitely hit the target.
We definitely did.
You did.
Yeah. So from that first meeting, that turned into, I believe we ended up with 5 groups in the southwest that we were facilitating between us.
So how are they split between county or?
So some counties have more than one because southwest being a dairy dense area. We ended up with 5 down there. I think there's 1 in Devon and 1 in Cornwall. Now historically things change. So we just go with the flow. But also, where the need is, that's where we'll be.
If I remember right, about the same time, didn't you have some other colleagues up north with
so it
similar
grew.
Sort of thing?
Yes, so AHDB colleagues and others were running groups across the country. We came across, I'm going to forget, Lisa. I forgot her surname. Williams.
How did you forget Lisa Williams?
I didn't forget her, I just forgot her name. Once met, never forgotten. She did some work with RABDF. They got some project money to trial a group in Cheshire. And through another HDB colleague, they found out this was happening. And they said, you need to speak to Becky and Sarah because they're already doing this. So that's further collaboration. That's how we got connected with RABDF and Lisa, who came on our advisory board and helped us develop and grow it forward. So now we have 14 groups across the country. AHDB have stepped back, but we've got various people from lots of different backgrounds facilitating those groups across the country. And if there isn't one near you, let us know because we can make it happen.
Definitely. I mean, sort of. It's really important to mention our facilitators because they all do it on a voluntary basis, whether they're farmers' wives, and we shouldn't use that term farmers' wives, whether they're part of the farming business through to anywhere in the supply chain. So we've got sort of feed reps and all sorts that do that facilitation for us.
There's a lot happened between then and now, but if I would have said to you 10 years ago that you'd be here and now discussing this and it'd be coming up to 10 years and you've got, 14 groups you just said across the country, did you ever think that was going to be possible? I know you've probably overwhelmed with 100 to start with, but did you think, it'll tail off, something will happen? Did you think you'd be where you are now 10 years ago?
So looking at my profile, yes, but I am still blown away that we are.
Sarah?
I think it's a credit to everybody that's a part of it that it's got the momentum to where it is today, and I think it's got even further to go. It's what are we, 14 groups? Well, there's no reason why it shouldn't be 28 groups, 50 groups. And I think what I really love is the fact that when we first started looking at it, we got in touch with, we saw that there were other groups in other countries, so like New Zealand, Australia, and we were sort of getting in touch with them to find out how they worked it. And now we're getting people coming back to us from New Zealand and Australia going, hey, you guys look really successful. How did you do it? And that just makes me feel so warm inside and so proud of what we have achieved.
The next question that was forming in my head was, have you seen success in terms of others from overseas saying, hey, that's worked really well, what can we do to duplicate that, whether it happens to be? But what you're saying, there was already a little bit of that happening, but it's almost the wheels turned and it's now on you as the advice rather than taking or giving.
And if you look globally, actually, sort of women in agriculture and discussion groups and field labs, stable schools, all of those sorts of things across the world, actually there are more women in agriculture and more women in discussion groups across the whole of the world than there are in, than there are men's groups. And I think that's, we're just another of those organisations.
Just an extension.
I was going to say, if you look at the world stats, and probably you've got some, but what you see, I guess, probably thinking India, Africa, those sorts of things, it's mainly the women doing the agricultural work. So as a global industry, then there are more women in agriculture than there are men.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so I've got a stat here I'm going to share now.
Yeah.
So back in 2019, 17% of recorded farmers were women. And in 2023, it's 22%. Actually, they've always been there. It's just he got the form and signed it.
Yeah.
Generally, it was always a partnership. Family farms are our mainstay and always have been.
Yeah.
It's just not been recorded.
Yep.
And so, across the world, it's exactly the same.
For sure.
We're just raising the profile and empowering.
You've just made me think of a couple more people that I mentioned names earlier because I guess they are the standout lead in their business. But then it's made me think actually just now there's a couple of couples, family farms that the woman is just as influential in that business. You just you don't.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
Hasn't
It's
it?
changed a lot, and again, things have changed.
But because you guys have been driving it, it's changed a lot because it becomes actually more acceptable. The story that I love telling is many years back, I used to give a lot of judging courses in South Africa. And what we actually started doing with the Breed Society was trying to pull the whole family in.
Yeah.
So the husband and the wife would come on. Now, if you think of it, generally the son would go home after he studied and he'd start farming. Then he'd meet somebody and they'd get married and she'd come back to the farm with no experience or idea what he does for a living. And that would basically almost be a split in what you were doing. Now, when they used to come to judging courses and the husband and wife would come together, then we'd start teaching her what we actually look at in a cow and the difference and how things. And it used to be one of the most fantastic things that you could do is actually to take somebody that knows near to nothing and actually show them what's doing. But they were far easier to teach than the husband.
Yep.
Because he already had pre-decided ideas on what it should be. And that blank sheet that you actually could work with, it was phenomenal. But the nice thing about that is when people like that got back to the farm, they were empowered.
Yep.
They actually understood.
Definitely.
And that's what you guys are doing. If you get the right topics, you're empowering. Even on your calf rearing, I think it's brilliant to actually understand that's where it all starts.
Definitely.
Start at the beginning.
If we don't get the calf rearing right, we don't have the longevity in the herd, do we?
No.
But going back to your farming partnerships, one springs to mind is the Wastonage family.
Right.
And I ought to just mention Di because she is our patron of women in dairy. So, sort of she's one of those true women that's in equal partnership within the business. And they really have that separation of roles to make that business successful.
I mean, some of it, as you say, it's always been there, but traditionally then it's been the male has been the figurehead, shall we say, or the front of shop. It's usually been the woman's traditionally, and I don't mean to sound sexist or anything like that, but it's usually been the women have been behind doing the paperwork, doing you could argue the things that actually matter half the time in terms of government or whatever it happens to be, but they've not been the person you talk to when you go on farm, and yet they're often the ones actually doing the signing the checks or whatever it happens to be.
And I think picking up on that we really noticed that when we asked the women what topics they wanted to discuss, we were actually getting some of those topics that were behind the scenes topics that I know there were certain topics that I'd been putting in front of my discussion groups that I'd been working with at the time that were heavily male attendees, and they just weren't looking at that subject. But when we then put that to the women, they were like, yeah, we want that. And I remember one in particular with cattle first aid, that the women, we want that. They all turned up for their meeting and said, well, the men are all really disappointed that we're doing this because they all want to do it. I said, I'll put on a meeting for them as well. It was, but it wasn't that topic had never been there. That topic had always been a topic that they could have had, but they didn't realise they wanted it.
And sometimes it's a real frustration with AHDB when you run discussion groups and say, right, what topics do you want next?
Yeah.
And it'd be like tumbleweed blowing across, and you think, and it was like, oh, so frustrating. And the difference with women is, we've got too many topics. We've got time to fit it all in, but that's brilliant because we can prioritise and come back to it. And the other thing that we find is they voluntarily come back and tell us about the change they've actually effected on farm as a result of coming to a meeting and learning something.
Right.
When you try and find out change from other people, let's call them, it's, I'm sure they do make change. They just don't.
You can say men. It's fine.
It's really hard for them to actually tell us about it, to verbalise it. They might be doing it, but to get it out of them.
Yeah, I know.
They'd send emails and pictures showing us with things that they'd made changes with, just not without even asking, that they just wanted to show you what they'd done.
Yeah.
It's just really, And that makes you feel good that you've actually motivated that change.
Yeah.
You know, as a facilitator, that's why you do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we've got a passion for that business to be successful, and to hear that they have made change on the back of that meeting is just
It's not
fantastic.
supposed to be a loaded question at all, but have you then, you're saying these changes are happening, have you then found resistance from the men on farm from some of this, the fact that you have, I suppose, empowered the women to be more vocal or more forthright with what they want, what their expectations
So
are?
I'll be completely honest. I had some resistance from our manager at HDB, who very recently came up to both of us and said, "I was wrong."
Well, that's fantastic.
But fair play.
Yep.
Very honest. And we have actually had some women who were already very successful in their partnerships, could not see what the need was because they were fine and they'd managed.
Yeah.
But it's
They'd
the
been
people
successful.
that hadn't. But they had been successful and they'd obviously had, self-motivated and got themselves there. Not everybody is of that ilk. So our ethos is to help everybody, whatever their background, so that they can be the same.
Yeah, exactly.
And to come back to you saying, men being negative about it, when we've had meetings on farm, the rest of the team are invited. And they're always really complimentary at the end. Well, that was amazing. I learned so much. I didn't think it would be that good.
Yeah. Well, that's a positive, I guess.
I like that.
So in the 10 years, what's happened in the 10 years? How's it progressed? What have you done? What are the standout points? Yeah, what are the standout points for you?
Shall we go with what our sort of strapline is, which is that connect, share and inspire, which is what we feel Women in Dairy is meant to be about.
Yep.
So bringing people within the industry together to connect, that sharing part as to sharing the load. If you're going through something that's stressful, even just talking about it with somebody else is a real positive, but it's also sharing the knowledge, sharing experiences and just
and it's really supportive.
Well, which
Definitely.
to be honest is no different if you talk. I mean, we've had a couple of Catherine would be one, Neville would be another, both members of Gillingham Grazers, and I know several other members of Gillingham Grazers. In terms of discussion group, that's one of the things they pointed out is, and it'd be no different, it's the fact that they can share. So that Gillingham Grazers are spring calving group, but if they're having a crap spring, then they don't feeling alone because everybody's having a crap spring. They can soon put a message on WhatsApp. Be no different in Women in Dairying. This is going, well, if it's not working for you, it's also not working for us because everybody's having a crap spring or whatever it happens.
Just makes you feel a little bit better
to
know you're not alone.
Not the only one.
It does make you feel
or
better.
to have that support.
Yes.
And I remember we did a round of meetings on succession planning.
Yep.
And we definitely needed a tissue box.
Yep.
Because the situations people find themselves in, and it is desperate out there. It really is, and
I can believe it.
It's an enormous elephant that we need to be talking more about.
To be honest with you, when you see some of the horror stories in the news where it's all gone to court and this one's not talking to that one and that one's not talking to that one and they haven't promised this and it is something. I mean, I know we spoke.
And nobody wins apart from a solicitor, and they don't want to win on. They don't want to do those cases. That's not why they became a solicitor.
Exactly. I mean, I know a couple of families myself that have been involved in those sorts of things, and they say it's only solicitors that are winning. I mean, I know we spoke briefly with Catherine and Nathan, wasn't it, about succession planning in terms of their business. Different setup, I know, because it's not family and progression in the same, it's son, daughter, etc. But it's still succession planning.
It is,
and it was still a good conversation that we had, and hopefully made some people think. But exactly that is it doesn't matter male, female. That is a big elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
and people in families. We're going slightly off piste here, but in families we do take liberties with our relationships. We tend to treat our families quite badly compared to how we would treat anybody else.
It's the familiar thing,
It's
isn't it?
yes, and then it becomes a learned behaviour, and the children see it, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it repeat.
Yeah.
Let's go back to inspire because that's so much more positive.
But it's a fair
it's great.
point, and the whole point of this is to have a discussion, and that is a fair point on things. But yeah, so what's in the 10 years? What has been your standouts?
Oh,
Where to start?
I know it's so difficult, isn't it? I think should we go conference?
Yes.
Because that was something that I picked up when I was first looking at running women groups and looking abroad.
Yep.
And New Zealand and Australia were having an annual conference, and it was sort of in the back of my mind. One day we will get
have a conference.
I want us to be that successful that it's viable and worthwhile to have a conference. And it happened really quickly. It happened so quickly.
Well, the fact you had 100 at the first meeting, you
I know.
call that a conference. You'd have a conference straight away.
Exactly. So to now be at 10 years and looking at the topics we've covered, the breadth of speakers we've had over the years. We were started to make a quick list yesterday and we didn't know where to stop. But some of the standouts, Jude Capper coming in to talk about how to talk to people about farming and engage. Miriam Parker, she brought in some goggles.
Oh, so, she's the,
cattle
handler. She's brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. So got some of the ladies to put these goggles on. And basically they're from the Royal National Institute for the Blind. So you instantly can't see very well. And it's almost like a cow can. So you drop your head to look where you're going. And you being a cow signals person will exactly know what this is. And you slow down. And what do we do when a cow slows down? You shouldn't, but you start whacking her on the back to make she's slowing down because she wants to see where her feet go. Bringing things to life like that was so powerful. She's amazing.
I mean, just those two you mentioned there, I've heard them both speak and they are both fantastic speakers. Definitely.
Yeah, we've been so blessed with
Definitely.
the quality.
And it wasn't just a case of just talking about the farming side of things. We actually brought in speakers like Lindsay Chapman, who at the time was at Dairy Crest, and Sheila Hancock. So all within the supply chain, some very inspirational women within the wider business.
Yeah. Because I say it's not just open to people on farm, is it? It's open to anybody within the industry.
Exactly. Anybody within the dairy industry.
Yeah. Whether they're CEO of a feed company or the apprentice at the bottom of the
even a relief milker. And I shouldn't even put an even at the front of that because it's an important role.
It really is.
You didn't say just.
No, but that's it. It's home. So, any more highlights from the last 10 years?
Too numerous to mention, I think.
Yeah, I think some of those changes that we hear about. I did led a meeting on waste management and reducing plastics within the business, and we had an external speaker come from one of the companies. And the next meeting we were out on farm, and this lady had literally taken that whole ethos and run with it. She'd got these big bags to recycle all these different things. Her yard was tidier. Everything was getting recycled. It was absolutely awesome just to see changes like that and actually see those changes just makes you feel proud that you've been a part of it.
Absolutely.
And I think coming back to breeding, because we did one on breeding and actually understanding the AHDB tool for understanding the genomics and genetics in your
and
herd.
wild methods and
and I remember a couple of ladies coming to that meeting and they were getting crosser and crosser, and by the end of the meeting, I can't believe the way we've been breeding cows all these years. The idiot! And this tool was available on AHDB, and we paid for it. It's part of our living.
That's always my argument.
So
you've paid for it.
You can bet your bottom dollar there were changes made there.
So what are you doing to celebrate the 10 years?
So we are having our 10th conference at the House of Lords this September on the 19th.
Bit special, definitely.
Very special environment, yes.
We wanted to do something special, and I hope that everybody agrees with us that it is something a little bit
something
different.
To celebrate, isn't it?
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah. So we can't tell you about our speakers yet because we haven't got them all
lined up
quite yet. Because but you'll be sure we'll be shouting about it because we're excited about the ones we believe will be coming.
and the topic sort of area of the conference, we're not looking back. We're actually looking forward to the next 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part of it, that it's taking the women on that journey with us.
So we will have people that have been on that journey and how they've got there.
So can you tell us what you want to do in the next 10 years, next 20 years? What's the big plan?
If you leave it to Becky and I, it's how big is the world?
Sky's the limit, yes.
That's the adventurer in her, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I just want to make sure we've got the groups where they're needed and we're fulfilling the need.
Yes.
We know there's need.
So if there is, as you've already said, if there's an area that somebody's maybe hopefully listening to this that doesn't have a group or doesn't know how to contact a group, make contact.
Yeah.
And we'll
So go on the
do something.
RABDF, the Royal Association for British Dairy Farmers website.
Yep.
And there's a page specifically for women in dairy. All the contact information is there.
Yep.
And Romany, who is doing a phenomenal job for us at RABDF, will look after you.
And if necessary, help start another group if that's really needed.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of thinking about our membership and actually can we inspire more women into the industry. I know myself, I'm not from a farming background at all. As I say, I think I mentioned last time, born and bred in South London, and actually
impossible.
I know. It took a long while to get over that. I know
not
nothing.
out in the industry yet. She's not been in it long enough.
But can we inspire some more people like me to come into the industry? And I think as women in dairy, we have got a role to play with that. And I think that,
we as a whole industry, not just women in dairy, but we as a whole industry need to be attracting people from outside the industry.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And it was one of the topics we had at our last conference, talking about diversity.
Yep.
Ability.
Yep.
Attitude.
Yep.
That's what we need. And we need to be demonstrating. I can't count the number of roles we have within our industry, from grazing the cow through to a product on the shelf. There are opportunities for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's such a vibrant, exciting place to be.
Oh, I know. I mean, you just look at the recent one we did at the Southwest Dairy Development Centre. I mean, just some of the stuff we saw there is just, whoa, who's we said there, who's coming up with this stuff? So as you say, there are roles there for people to just almost the sky's the limit really now.
From
work with
software
animals, work
engineers.
with tech, work outside, work inside.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Work with animals, work with data, absolutely everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And be in a rural environment.
Oh, what could be better?
I was going to say, for somebody that grew up in suburbia.
Do you miss it?
No. Not. You had that quick answer. Not one little bit.
Answered that question ages ago.
So with the conference, where can people find details if they need to find them?
Yep. So go to the RABDF website.
Yep.
And look on our social media page, Women in Dairy.
It will all be there.
It will all be there.
And I'm sure all the members will be getting mail out.
And we really encourage people from wherever you are in the country.
Yep.
We'll hold your hand if you've never been to London, because it could be a little bit of a barrier for some people. Because if you've not been it or not seen it, it is a safe place to come.
I can kind of understand that because a couple of months ago I went to the podcast show in London. Now I have been to London before, but it's probably the first time I've been to London in nearly 10 years or something like that. First time I've actually been to London on my own, not with somebody. It's not like I didn't know what to do, but it's still like, oh, I'm in London. Oh, there's lots of people.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to get on the underground. I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And it's like, I was fine, don't get me wrong, but it was still like, oh my God, I'm going to London on my own. And I'm like, come on, you're a grown man. I'm sure you can do this.
So for anyone feeling a little bit anxious about that, please get in touch and we'll make sure we can buddy you up with somebody. And
we're going to do some maps and everything, and from all the major train stations, how to get to the venue and all of those sorts of things.
It's fairly easy with getting into the middle of London and going to Lloyd's. Just to get into the centres.
Yes, it couldn't get much more central.
One train.
Yeah.
So it's not like me that at age 18 was quite happily going to do work experience up in London and going there by myself and everything else. So actually it's almost like going home maybe just for the day.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm guessing you said you can't, but do you have somebody from the House of Lords to, I suppose, open the conference, or can't talk about it at this stage?
Can't confirm or deny.
Fair enough.
A really politician's response, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say half will be out of job by then, but it won't be House of Lords.
House of Ladies for that day.
Perfect.
Yes. I expect there'll be a few people will be a bit overwhelmed when you descend on the House of Lords that day.
Quite possibly.
Possibly.
Dear. So, what else do you want to talk about in terms of women in dairy?
I'm going to talk about plant your pants.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
So actually, there's quite a nice little story with this, that it all started at last year's conference. We were talking a lot about soils and sustainability. And we there and then decided that we were going to do a Plant Your Pants campaign to really look at our biological activity in our soils. So we encouraged women to show us their pants and plant them on the 6th of April. And we're now at that stage that whilst it was a quite slow, cold spring, with the biological action has begun to work. I dug mine up actually the day before Open Farm Sunday, so I could take them to Open Farm Sunday. So
do you like flashing your pants?
I love flashing my pants.
Sarah.
And actually,
we nearly got through the whole podcast without that.
Not a chance.
but actually, it links in a lot of what we've been talking about. So I was there on behalf of King's Hay and on behalf of Women in Dairy. So I sort of split myself in half and was sort of talking about soils on behalf of King's Hay and everything else, but really talking about the biological activity with my pants. And Lorna that was hosting that particular Open Farm Sunday, she had planted some pants too. And I have to say that mine were way more eaten than hers. I did have the advantage that mine were planted in my garden in a raised bed in a south-facing garden, whereas Lorna's were in a bit of a cold, wet clay soil, whereas mine was some nice imported topsoil. So whilst it wasn't a fair trial, but
it was representative of where you both came from.
It was. But what really it grasped the imagination of the general public that were there, and so many were going to go home and plant their pants in their own garden.
Is that right?
And that's especially keen gardeners. I didn't think about that. I want to know what my vegetable bed's doing. And
it's funny you said that because I'm involved on our local agricultural show, and we have a farm discovery tent, big marquee. And
which show is that?
The Alresford Agricultural Society show, the best show, just outside Winchester. It's a jewel in the crown.
Gillingham and Shaftesbury. Gillingham and Shaftesbury.
Each to their own. Anyway, we got 12 farmers to bury their pants last year, and then we had them hung up.
Yes.
And it was such a draw for the public because why have you got rotting underwear hanging on this washing line?
Yeah.
And then they came in and we had the cluster farm talking about what they were doing ecologically, biologically. We had a wormery. We had soil under a microscope so you could see the life under the soil. We had plants. You could identify what oats and wheat look like. So when you're out there walking with your dog, you know what it is. It's not grass. It's not always grass.
No.
But it was so powerful. And bless her, Minette Battens had done a talk on the NFU stand early on, and she came onto the stand and she very kindly said it was the best stand for education the public she'd seen. So we've got to really raise our game this year.
I mean, we've discussed that in the past, haven't we? Because we had Giles Simpson, who's the current... was it chairman? No. I can't remember what his title is. Apologies, Giles. For Gillingham and Shaftesbury show, and and that's what we're talking about. The whole point of the show is, as much as our shop window, to educate the public about what we do and show them what we do. It's our one day of the year to show that to the public. So no, that's fantastic.
So I think the Plant Your Pants campaign not only suitable for the farmers that were attending the meetings and wanted to really try and encourage their biological activity that they'd learnt at the conference, but actually a really great tool for taking that across social media and really, sort of having a chance to talk to the general public about it as well.
About what we're doing. Because they've heard about the subsidies for looking after the countryside. This is what we're doing.
And
we can demonstrate it. We can demonstrate it with pants.
So look out for more pants as we start digging them up a bit more.
But I have seen historically a few people do that. That was an AHDB meeting, I reckon. It must be 5, 6, 7 years ago. Someone had buried their pants under a hedge or something. But anyway, that's a whole different other story.
You can, if you bury them under the hedge and then a little bit further out the field and see the difference.
That's what it was. Yeah.
So you nearly remembered the take-home message.
It's a long. I get the idea that the whole point is the more they rot, or the more they've broken down, rather than what might be the better.
More activity,
more activity going on in the soil.
So why under our hedges? Why is it better there than out in the field? What are we doing, and what can we do differently?
So I just obviously can't get past Sarah's pants. What other messages would you like to do today, apart from, if you're not already involved, get involved with Women in Dairy?
Yeah, please come along. And the first meeting is free, so you can try before you buy. The membership is £45 it's not a big spend.
No.
It's nothing really, is it?
For what you get.
And you get tickets to Dairy Tech, so it's obviously RABDF and Dairy Tech, Down to Earth. So there's all the member benefits of being a member of RABDF, plus the Women in Dairy.
I was going to say, because the RABDF, because I'm a member of that, that's £45.
It is, it's exactly the same
thing.
Okay. So
that's right, to go to BCBC conference, it used to be that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe that half the RABDF members are in fact Women in Dairy members.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Probably been a boon for them as well, hasn't it?
Works.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the time, thinking it's time we sort of think to draw it down.
Mm-hmm.
Any last words of wisdom? Any last messages that you want to give us that you haven't given us? Anything you think we should know apart from, yes, 10 years of Women in Dairying, let's go celebrate.
Yep, we would love to see you in London on the 19th of September.
Yep.
And it is open to everybody in dairying in this country.
Yep.
And further afield if they want to
further
travel.
afield, yes, we have had.
We do have listeners around the world.
Yeah,
so,
please. If you're in London, please come and see us. And Sarah and I have been passionate from day one about the growth of the Women in Dairy Network, and we just want to carry on building on our current success.
Yeah, and why not?
Yeah.
It's going well because you always see you guys on social media. You've got meetings. You had a Buffalo meeting, wasn't it, recently? They've
had all sorts.
I was going to say we went along to the Buffalo farm. I can't tell you how good the mozzarella is there.
Oh, bet.
It should be. It's made properly there.
Yeah.
It is.
If it's made out of buffalo milk.
Oh, exactly.
So, Neil, any last comments?
No, thanks again for coming. It's been great talking to you guys. It's very, very entertaining and interesting. So we will certainly be promoting everything about the conference and look forward to hearing how it went and what the results were.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, the only thing I can say is congratulations to you both for starting this 10 years ago and the success you've had with it since. And I think it's a good thing for the whole industry, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Anything that draws people together and empowers them.
And supports them. And
Connect, share and inspire.
Boom.
Well, there we go. That's how I think we should end it there then.
Absolutely.
So, really, thank you very much to both of you for coming. And otherwise, I guess it's a goodbye from me until next time.
Yeah, and a goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
What am I meant to say? Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Since we recorded that, unfortunately, there's been a little bit of a change in the location. And so with us this evening are Becky and Sarah, just to give us a little bit of an update of the new location and and more information about the conference. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Andrew. Yes, so since we recorded the podcast, due to unforeseen circumstances, we have had to change our venue. But we are delighted with our change of venue because we are going to be at the historic Stoneleigh Abbey, which is, as most people know, Kenilworth. So we will be in the centre of the country, which will make it a lot more accessible to all our members and anybody else who would like to attend.
And no worries about travelling through London as we spoke about when we originally recorded it.
Yeah, but useful information for everybody, I feel.
Definitely. I didn't need to embarrass myself talking about a grown man going to London on his own, but there you go.
No secrets now, Andrew.
Well, I think it's a really great place to celebrate some of the achievements and the future of women in dairy. It's hosted some remarkable figures like Queen Victoria and our beloved novelist Jane Austen over the years. So I think we're following in some great footsteps.
Well, exactly. It sounds like you've got a great venue lined up. So what more could people ask for? Any update in terms of who's going to be speaking at the conference?
Oh, we certainly do. We've got some amazing speakers. We wanted to tell you before, but now they're signed up, we can share. So firstly, I'd like to say that we have the maverick maker, Carol Glover, who brings her own unique non-farming perspective and will lead a co-creation session aimed at driving lasting transformation through mindset shifts, personal growth and increased confidence and self-belief. How are we going to follow that?
You tell me. That's why you're here.
It's. I'm so looking forward to our 10th anniversary. You can't believe it. So what else have we got? We've got
panel discussion.
Yes, we've got a panel board of sort of various people. Tell us, Becky.
We have Alison Rance from First Milk and Di Wassenage, who is also our Women in Dairy patron. So they will be sharing their achievements within the industry to share and inspire everyone that will be in the room, which they will be very inspiring, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've heard Di speak before. She's very good.
Yeah. And we have our fantastic chair, Karen Holton, again, who chaired for the first time last year and is back by popular demand. And she's a dairy farmer up in Cheshire.
I think I heard her speak at the Youngstock conference.
Yes.
She opened the Youngstock conference just, was it this month? No, last month. No, it would be July. She was fantastic. She had the whole room just, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she has control.
Definitely. Yeah. So she was one of our Women in Dairy Award winners just a couple of years ago.
During COVID, wasn't it? It was the time we had to award it online. Yeah.
Having heard her speak and what she spoke about to open the National Youngstock Conference, I can understand why completely in terms of what she's brought to that business and how she's turned that business around.
Yeah, tour de force, that one.
Yeah, definitely.
So hopefully that's a bit of a teaser for everybody. There are others, but they'll be drip fed over social media. So do follow us on all platforms, Women in Dairy.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, fingers crossed you have a good conference in September, and hopefully this will help, as you say, help encourage people to come along if they've not come along before. So really hope you have a great conference, and thank you very much for joining us and bringing us this update.
Oh, thanks again, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thank you very much to you both. Thank you for listening to the Tune the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. And now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose, and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness, or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses or products during the podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Limited. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Limited, and the views of Neil Greggor are personal and may not be the views of Viking Genetics and any affiliated companies. For more information on the podcast and details of services offered by Chewing the Cud Limited, visit www.chewingthecud.com. Thank you and goodbye.